Segment is sponsored by Polston Tax Resolution and Accounting. It's time you know the law. And Polston Tax Resolution and Accounting is here to help. Rachel?
Good morning. I'm Rachel Pappy, tax attorney from Polston Tax, and I'm here to remind you that in 7 weeks this year is going to officially be over. So I want to talk to all of my self-employed folks about one thing you need to do before this year ends. And that one thing is send the IRS a check for your estimated taxes on all the money you've earned this year. Self-employed people are supposed to send checks to the IRS all year round on the income you're earning. But when you don't know how much money you're going to make month to month, it's just not as easy as it sounds to send your hard-earned money off to the IRS. I'm self-employed, and I primarily work with self-employed individuals and business owners, so trust me, I understand how hard it can be to write that check and mail it off to the IRS repeatedly throughout the year. So I'm going to talk about an easy way you can write your estimated tax payment before this year ends, even if you haven't written any checks this year, particularly if you haven't written any checks this year. I'm going to start with the basics. So sending in estimated tax payments all year is a great idea. But when you're self-employed and you don't know how much you're going to earn month to month, sometimes you just can't guess what you might earn that year. So stopping every few months to calculate it, it's a difficult process, and the stair-step method of the tax brackets can be confusing. So today we're going to go over a recommendation I have for you. Now, I understand you probably have friends who are not self-employed and don't understand why it's so difficult to make these estimated tax payments. And first, I'm going to use the part of this segment to explain to them why it's not so easy. I created this first illustration to highlight that their W-2 income usually means that somebody else automatically calculates an estimate of their taxes. For people who are employees of a company, they don't need to worry about sending the IRS a check every time they get paid for their taxes, because their employer usually takes the taxes right out of their paychecks and mails it off to the IRS for them. Plus, the employer also chips in to pay for the payroll taxes as well. The employee just gets what remains of their paycheck after an estimate of their taxes have already been paid and taken out of it. Now, if you're an employee, you may not realize that what your employer is doing is just making an estimate of the taxes. And they use factors such as your filing status, actual tax brackets, your total income, pre-tax deductions, benefits, and calculating other allowances or exemptions from your taxable income. However, they're just sending an estimate, and these estimates are often wrong. In fact, when you get a refund from the IRS, it's because the estimate was wrong and you paid the government too much in taxes. So a refund really means the IRS was holding your money all year, and then they gave you back your money as a refund when you filed your tax return, and they said you paid them too much. Now, self-employed people who are trying to manage all of this on their own and these calculations, they usually don't get the joy of a surprise refund or fancy computer software to give them an estimate of all these variables and factors to determine how much to send. I'm going to give you a recommendation that may help you solve this problem before the year ends. Now, the recommendation I'm going to tell you, it's not an exact science. It doesn't take into account any deductions or credits you may take. It doesn't factor in self-employment tax. And in fact, it could result in a refund next year, or you may still owe on top of the estimated tax payment that you do make. But it's the simplest way I explain how to formulate your own estimated tax payment without calculating all the individual tax brackets one by one, your credits, your deductions, and all those variables. I created a slide to illustrate this very, very basic calculation. Figure out how much you distributed to yourself as income this year. Then look at what income tax bracket that amount of income would fall into. Here you can see the income tax brackets for 2019. Just pick your filing status and then find what range your income fell within, and you'll see the correlating income tax percentage on the left side. Now, under my formula, you reach an estimated tax payment amount by using a flat percentage against your income. We don't have flat tax rates in America, so you could actually round down that tax rate you fall into just slightly and probably still be within a safe range. And I'll give you one example of how to use this if that was confusing. So if you're single and you earned $80,000 in self-employed income this year, your top income would be taxed at the 22% income tax rate. So let's use my formula. You could round that 22% down slightly to 20% against your income of $80,000 and send the IRS a check of $16,000 for your taxes for the year. Now, two quick caveats. One, the IRS typically wants you to send checks at least quarterly, so you'll probably get dinged for only sending one check for all your income this year. And two, my formula doesn't account for any credits or deductions or any other allowances that may be on your tax return. It's only intended as a simple way to reach an estimate without more complicated calculations. Finally, just for comparison, without completing the entire tax return of this person, let's say we look at what the tax brackets actually are and what that stair-step tax calculation would be without any credits or deductions, like I said. As you can see, this calculation came out to approximately $13,500, plus you need to add in the self-employment tax. Thus, if this person had made a $16,000 estimated tax payment, they would certainly get a jump on the actual taxes that are going to come due when that return is prepared. That's all I have for you today, so feel free to email me directly with your questions or comments to rachel.pappy@polstontax.com. Now back to you.
Thanks, Rachel. Polston Tax Resolution and Accounting has 5 locations in Oklahoma City, Norman, Tulsa, Wichita, and Kansas City. You can call them at 405-801-2146. They also assist clients nationwide.
You can find Polston Tax Resolution and Accounting on social media. Just look for Polston Tax. Their website is polstontax.com.